I probably shouldn't be making this video, but I might even delete it later. Who knows? I want to make a prediction for you. I'm going to give away some insights that I normally charge people for when they ask me to look at their business. Most businesses, when I go in and I do an audit, first thing they say is, we don't make enough sales, we don't make enough conversions, we're not making enough revenue. They're kind of all related, but they're a little different and they're not always the same thing. The problem is revenue is the issue, and the easiest person to scapegoat is the sales team because they are the ones who are tasked with bringing in the revenue. But let's look at it just as 30,000 foot. Let's look at the big picture. They're going to say it's low close rates. They're not doing enough activity. We have a weak pipeline. It's just everything is geared right at these sales folks. And I don't think your salespeople know how you view them. That's the first thing. They're just revenue creators or they're revenue, procurers. I get that. A lot of times it doesn't even feel like they're part of the team. They're like a separate entity. Sales is its own animal. And that can work, but can also create problems. But the main thing is, I don't think that the sales people are really the big problem. I think leadership is, which is interesting because they're normally the people that call me to try to fix their sales problem. And the problem is them. And if I'm right, then hiring more salespeople is going to make things a lot worse. If I'm wrong, well, then if you hire salespeople, it's going to get a lot better because you just need more people. So let me explain what I mean by that. So there's a false belief loop that gets created. And that is, oh, my salespeople aren't hungry enough. My manager isn't coaching them well enough. The people aren't held accountable enough. Our CRM sucks. The marketing is weak or it isn't working, or the marketing's working great and our salespeople aren't closing. And if you look at that from my view, looking at a company and going through a P&L and talking to the owner, it's all external problems. It's all someone else's fault. And almost nobody says, I think I've only ever had one that I can think of. Our system's not that great. That's the first thing. That guy, he crushed. He ended up figuring it out very quickly. But most of the time, it's these external factors that have no bearing on the business. Our system is broke. Well, instead of blaming the people, let's fix the system first. It's way easier to blame a person because you can fire a person. You can't fire a system easily. There's normally a lot more to it. Replacing a system, getting rid of all software, fixing those issues is a much heavier lift than we're just going to fire that guy who doesn't sell well. That's the first thing. The problem that they create is once you start that firing metric, everyone knows that people are getting fired. Well, now everyone's starting to apply and look at other jobs. You could create a cascade effect where you lose not one, not two, but half your sales team or all of your sales team because you are now pointing the finger at them. And it may not actually be their fault because they're using this clunky, archaic, or a very disjointed system that you don't want to address because you may have built that system and you're proud of it. Well, that's great. And that may have worked great when you were at $1 million, $2 million. But now it's time to get into the big leagues where you're doing $10, $20 million. That system isn't going to work anymore. So the big reframe and how I want to change the look of this is, and I've learned this countless times, great companies don't build better employees. They don't. They build environments and systems where the average employee can perform at a good to great level. Let me say that again. They don't build better employees. They just build environments and systems where average people can excel. It's that simple. That's $1 million tip. If you are in business, understand that front to back. Think about like Chick-fil-A. Is not hiring some wizards or magical employees. They put them in a system and they put them in a program where they have to develop understanding of the system and then understanding of the company's core competencies so that they can excel at the job they're given. How can a bunch of high school kids, which if you go to your local Chick-fil-A, a lot of them will be high school age. How can these kids run efficient, successful business? It's because it was already set up and then it was taught and trained into them. They're not magic. The system is the magic. So let's walk through that from a different point of view. So say how do we create that? What makes the system? Well, it starts with leadership. It's a top down. You are a reflection of your company. So if you don't have systems or don't understand systems, you pay someone like me who can create the systems, make a scripted process so that it's teachable, understandable, learnable, and repeatable over and over and over again. And then you'll find the right people for the system because now you have the base. You know, if an average person comes in, they can learn the system, they can be an effective employee. If they're not, we can get rid of that person and replace them. Makes it way easier to hire people because now you don't have to find the absolute cream of the crop. You have to find people that are good attitude, willing to learn, and willing to try to do all the things in the system. And if they can do that, the rest of it takes care of itself. Then your exceptional employees, they will rise to the top, but they will be exceptional examples of doing the system. So the first mistake that I see leadership make all the time, and it's like a daily, it's why didn't we close more deals? It's the wrong question. Instead, ask how many qualified opportunities did we get in our pipeline? How quickly were we contacting them and moving them along our system in the pipeline? How many received follow-ups when we couldn't contact them? Do we go out of our way to call them, text them, email them, whether it be manual or automated, preferably manual if the automation fails on the first line? And then why did they stall? How many stalled? And what could we have done to prevent that? There's a big difference there. One is a diagnosis of your system. The other one is just blaming your salespeople. Why didn't we close more deals? So a real example, if a roofing company says, oh, one of our reps is only closing at 18%. And this is something that I helped them with this because I was like, why is this one person such a low closer? Well, I discovered that like 42% of the internet leads weren't contacted faster than 24 hours. So he would get a lead and then the next day he would call them. And I was like, so you just put that on the rep to make an appointment when his job, his description was to close more roofing deals. Well, the company said, well, it's his responsibility to schedule. And I said, okay, so now he's doing administration work that technically he's not getting paid for. And those leads could come in at 10 o'clock at night. He can't be on call 24 hours a day. That's not realistic. You need to have a system to do this or a call center or something so that you can't put the onus on that employee. The system failed him before he ever got there. Now, I do believe some of those calls were during business hours and he should have answered or called them right back. Absolutely. That falls on him. But you can't expect an employee to be on call 24/7. That's just not realistic. That is a system failure. And that's a failure for leadership for putting that on them. The next thing is the way that leadership rewards activity instead of outcomes. I cannot tell you how often I've seen this and I've learned this the hard way. Activity doesn't always equal results. It doesn't equal an outcome. And we tend to over-index on activity because it's what we can control. But there is a component to that called the quality of activity. I would rather have a rep that does less activity, but does a higher quality of activity and yields a better outcome than the rep that does all the activity and they don't sell anything. You see the problem there? They're doing a lot of work, but they're not actually helping the company move forward. And a lot of times that comes into them trying to game the CRM or the system to show, look at all the work I've done. But why didn't you make any sales? Think about it. If they make 100 cold calls, they send 200 emails, they go to 50 meetings, who cares? If they don't sell anything, It, so what? Like, who cares? The customers don't buy activity. They buy products, great presentations, follow up. They buy the company. They buy the process. They buy the person. They don't buy the activity. They don't. I've never sat on a call and said, "Hey, it took me 500 cold calls to get to you. I I'm so excited you answered." I've never said like that's never came up. They want results. They want their product, their service. They want the item. Period. They don't care about activity. Which salespeople generate activity that generates business? And you should be tracking that because you'll be able to see what activity equals the best outcomes. Very, very common. Uh, Leadership mistake number 3. And I've got notes on this because it's getting to be to the point of where it almost stresses me with this one. Every decision requires the founder for this, founder that, blah, blah, blah. You hit the ceiling because the founder loses the ability to have enough hours in the day. Everything needs approval. Everybody needs a discount. Everything needs, everything needs to go back to the founder for approval. Discounts, complaints, customer service, in-house complaints. I've met founders that are like their own accounting department and their own HR department. And it's like, hire people to do these things because you're slowing down the business. And the reason you're slowing down the business is very interesting. And it's not only because you don't have enough hours in the day, it's because you create closed thinking. If everything has to run through you, that means that your employees aren't trained to be standalone and to think and to overcome problems. They're trained to come tell you, and now your bandwidth is used to overcome problems. That's a losing situation. You need people that can think. Train them to think. I would set the framework of if you come to me with a problem, if it's an open door situation, which I do not agree with, come to me with a recommendation first. If you don't have a recommendation for your problem, you either can't come up with one or you're lazy and you're not interested. You just need me to do something. Now you're putting more work on my plate when I need to be focused on growing the business. I recommend it for every company that has an open door policy is if they don't have a recommendation for how to handle the solution, don't bring the solution. Unless the building is on fire, it's going to cost us millions of dollars, or it's some like catastrophic problem. Don't bring it to me without a recommendation of what you think we should do. Period. To save you, that's $1 million tip. It'll save you mountains of headache. So then the last thing that I like to talk about is the demand sales frameworks for this. It's not who is underperforming. It's where is the revenue leaking? Where does the customer experience break down? Where does our actual deal velocity slow down? Where is the friction? And then whose accountability to all of this? To which spot? Who's accountable? Where do we have accountability? And where does accountability disappear? Where do we lose accountability? Very, very important ideas. And then does leadership create friction anywhere in the system or process? If you fix those, revenue will go up. No questions asked. So if you found value in this, comment below if any of this resonated with you or if any of it made sense. If you have any questions, hit my link. I'm giving away the revenue audit for free, and I may keep this video up. I may not.